Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So today was Coordinators Day, as it always is on Thursdays on a normal week of work for the Commanders. Last week was an off week, obviously, because of the Thursday night football game, so everything was kind of off kilter. We're back to business as usual. Coordinator Thursday. We heard from both Cliff Kingsbury and Joe Whitt Jr. We'll talk about what was said a little bit later on in the show. However, I do want to start today's show by talking about the temperament of defensive coordinator Joe Whitt Jr. Now, it's not uncommon for him to be a little, chesty with the media, especially if they ask a question that he's not too fond of. However, when the team performs well, he's in much better spirits. They did not perform well against Green Bay on Thursday night. He had a lot of time to stew over the loss and the way that the defense performed. And to say that he was a bit chesty and testy with the media today would be an understatement. Now, he wasn't disrespectful. He even went back and apologized to Ben Standing for a comment he made where he said he didn't want to talk about last year because he didn't brought up last year to someone else in reference to their question. So he did go back and apologize. However, his temperament, his stance, his posture, the way he was ornery at his press conference, I think speaks to the temperament, the mindset of this team coming into this Raiders game. The Raiders are in trouble, I fully believe, coming into this game. They're going to get a very upset, disgruntled, and frankly, ready to kick someone's ass Commanders type of team. They've had 10 days to sit on that loss. They're disappointed with the way they performed. They're ready to get back out on the field. And whether it's Marcus Mariota or Jaden Daniels, I don't think it's going to matter because I think the defense is going to come out and play exceptional football. I am nervous about Brock Bowers. We are going to talk about him later on in this show and obviously a lot tomorrow. But what remains is that this defense did not play horribly on Thursday night, and going back and watching the film kind of bared that out. I talked about the fact that this defense stopped the run exceptionally well in the game, and there were people out there making it seem as if the defense didn't stop the run, and Joe Whitt Jr. addressed that immediately in his press conference, and he was very chesty, and I think his temperament, his attitude, the way that he felt is what this team is going to come out feeling on Sunday. That's the mindset of a team that's pissed off and looking to take out their frustrations on someone, and that someone is the Vegas Raiders. And that's what I feel, and that's what I wanted to lead off today's show with. Joe Whitt Jr., very testy, very chesty at the press conference today. I think this team's going to come out with a similar demeanor on Sunday, and that bodes well for them and not very well for the Vegas Raiders. But we will see. Got to go out and play well and execute in order to have the type of result that this team is looking for. You move on to in other news. And as I talked about already, Joe Whitt Jr., Cliff Kingsbury, both coordinators spoke today. We'll talk about what was said by both of them. But before we get to any of that, let's get to the injury report. As I laid out for you yesterday, because the Raiders play on the opposite coast, their injury report doesn't come out until after 7. Ours is due at 4 o'clock. Every team on the East Coast has to put their injury report out by 4 o'clock. And every team in whatever time, whatever time period they're in, time zone rather, they're in, they have to put theirs out at 4 o'clock. So if you're in Central Time, 5 o'clock. If you're in the Mountain Time, you got to put it out at 6 o'clock. If you're Pacific Time, you have to put it out by 7 o'clock, which is 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So we're never going to have their injury report for the actual day because of the timing of this video being recorded. However, we can look at what they did yesterday. So we're going to start with the good guys because we have an updated injury report, and this is what it looks like. John Bates, and Noah Brown and Jaden Daniels, as we know, none of them practiced today. Don't think any of them are going to practice until Friday at the earliest. We knew they weren't practicing today. I don't think Bates and Noah Brown are going to play in this game. So I don't think they're going to practice tomorrow. I do think Jaden Daniels, and I've continued to say this, and I may be wrong, and I don't care if I'm wrong or not. I'm not looking to be right here. I feel like Jaden Daniels is going to make a case to play. I think they are going to assess the situation, feel like he can go out and do everything that he needs to do, and he's going to play on Sunday. I think he's going to practice on Friday. Just because he practices on Friday doesn't mean he's going to play on Sunday. But I do think he's going to practice to leave that window open because DQ said if he doesn't practice, he can't play. So if you don't put him out there on Friday to see what he can do and feel comfortable in what you saw, then he's not going to play. So if he doesn't practice tomorrow, Jaden Daniels isn't playing on Sunday. I think they're going to practice him tomorrow, and there's still a chance that he doesn't play. But I think practicing tomorrow is going to be the precursor to him having a shot to play on Sunday, which I still think is very, very within possibility. Trey Amos, limited yesterday with the shoulder, limited again today. Hopefully this is not an issue. Feels like he's going to be fine, but again, we'll keep monitoring that situation. Brandon Coleman, Jeremy McNichols, and Colson Yankoff all were limited yesterday. Full participants today. That puts me at ease with those players. Now I feel comfortable and confident that those guys don't have any real lingering issues. So I feel confident and comfortable that those guys will be able to participate on Sunday. Deebo Samuel was excused today for a personal reason. Don't know what the issue is. As long as he's healthy physically, that's all we care about. And also, I shouldn't say that because I don't know what's going on in his personal life. Hopefully everything is going well, whether he, is expecting a child or just hope it's no, situation that's dire from a family standpoint. Hopefully everything is going well in his life. But he is fine from a physical standpoint. As we get to the ops, not a lot here. Jeremy Chin, our old friend, a pec injury, limited yesterday. Brock Bowers' knee, we know he's limited, but he's going to play. And Jackson Powers Johnson missed the game last week with a concussion. Limited. We'll see if he can go. Honestly, all three of these guys are starters. All three of these guys impact the game. If any of them miss, advantage Commanders. But again, I expect every single one of them, including Jackson Powers Johnson, who did not play on Monday night against the Chargers, to be able to go in this game versus the Commanders on Sunday. So it looks like the Raiders are going to be relatively healthy going into this Week 3 contest versus the Commanders. So now let's get to what was said at the podium by both of the coordinators. We start with Cliff Kingsbury. He started out his press conference talking about his confidence in Marcus Mariota, which we know he has. Again, Marcus didn't start any games last year, but he played extensively in 2 of the games last year against Carolina, as we know, and the Week 18 regular season finale versus Dallas, and he played well in both of those games. So there's immense confidence in Marcus. He's a veteran, been there, done that, and he came in and ran the offense beautifully last year. So Cliff has the utmost confidence in Marcus should he have to play. He gave a Jaden update, which was really not an update. He said he's taking all the mental reps he can, but physically, Marcus is taking all the reps. We know that. That's all that Cliff gave us. So he didn't give us anything that we didn't already know, but he continues to state the obvious that Jaden is mentally getting prepared to play. Physically, he'll have to show the team that he is up to par, and that's going to take place on Friday if it's going to happen at all. Replacing Eck, he talked about Eckler and his value to the team and what he brought to the table. Talked about his ability to make guys miss, that they would put in plays specifically for Eck to get out in space, get him the football, because they knew he was going to make that first guy miss. So he's like, that's a big blow to this offense. He talked about the quarterback room. It's a tight-knit group. He said he gave a lot of credit to Vita Pritchard for the closeness of that room and how they conduct business out there. We heard Marcus yesterday kind of talk about his advice to Jaden. That was some tremendous advice, and it just talks and speaks to the closeness of that room. And so he gave a lot of credit to Vita for how that room conducts itself. Chase Edmonds, he talked about his relationship with Chase Edmonds and how Chase Edmonds was a guy that he really trusted in Arizona. There was a 1-2 punch with him and James Conner. He feels like Chase Edmonds is going to bring a lot to the table here. He's a smart football player. One of the first things that he did when he came here was he went to Bill and he said, hey, anything you need to know, anything you got questions about as a veteran, I can help you. Let me know. So he's already came in, endeared himself to the young guy in the room, and he's a guy that I think is ultimately going to be a big fixture in what they do offensively to try to fill the void left by Austin Eckler. Bill, he talked about Bill, and I guess he gave us a little bit of clarity. This is probably the most impactful thing that Cliff said the entire day, because we had questions. Why didn't Bill play more? Why wasn't he on the field more? And he basically spelled it out for us. He says, Bill has to be better without the ball in his hands. He said when he touches the football, he's dynamic. Good things have happened, which if I'm a coach, and you tell me he's struggling without the ball in his hands. Okay, I get that. You don't put him on the field in the situations when he doesn't have the football, but you got to get him more touches as a running back. Like, to me, that's the bare minimum, right? He's too talented to keep off the field in that regard. But you know how coaches are. If you can't do the things that we're asking you to do, we don't want tells. You can't be on the field because if all you're doing is getting the ball, when you get on the field, they're going to know we're running the football and it's going to make us less effective. So you can't be on the field if you can't do the things we're asking you to do without the ball in his hands. And he talked about Bill running. So I remember I asked you guys during the film session, I wonder who was in the wrong here. Was it Bill on that play where Jaden was throwing the check down to Bill out of the backfield and the ball was kind of behind him and Bill jumped backwards? And I'm like, I don't know if Jaden was off there or if Bill was off there. So it was Bill because essentially Cliff said, he's got to be able to run the right routes out of the backfield. He's got to be able to protect. He's got to be able to, run the right depth of the routes, et cetera, et cetera. He's got to be better without the ball. So translation, he's young. He's still making rookie mistakes. We can't have that. So in order to bypass the growing pains while he continues to learn on the practice field, we're just not going to put him on the field in those situations. So that's why we saw so much of Eck. Well, I'm not saying that you're going to be forced to put Bill in the game because that's why you bring up Chris Rodriguez. And if they don't love what he's doing, they'll put Rodriguez in. They'll put J-Mac in, right? They don't have to put Bill in. But Bill is going to get an opportunity. And Cliff said he's working extremely hard. He's continuing to get better every week, which we expect him to do. But the mental side has to speed up because we want to see this kid on the field because we know of what kind of impact he can have. And if the mental side of things is slowing him down, and that's stopping him from being on the field, it's hurting the team overall from a production standpoint. So hopefully Bill can fast track that process because we need to see him on the field. And Cliff basically said he's got to be better without the ball in his hands. All right. He talked about Josh Conley Jr. And look, it's nothing that we haven't already talked about. Yeah, he struggled a little bit, but guess what? He's also going up against some of the best that the NFL has to offer in these first 2 weeks, and that's going to continue this week with Max Crosby. I think Cliff has to do a better job of helping him out because you already know the young kid is struggling. And again, he's getting baptism by fire. We love it. At least I love the fact that he's getting these kind of reps early in his career. The question is he going to be better because of these reps, or is this just who he is, and it really doesn't matter who's in front of him? We're going to see. But in the meantime, how about you help him out? How about you make sure that he doesn't get singled up very often? I know you can't on every play make sure that Max Crosby is doubled up. But most of the time, you need to make sure Max Crosby has two guys on him, one of them being Josh Conley Jr. And whether that's the guard in the tackle or a tight end in the tackle or running back in the tackle, I don't really care. It just needs to be two guys on him because Max Crosby is a problem, right? He talked about John Bates' void that was left in the offense. He said you kind of saw it on Thursday night. Like once he got injured, the running game, really became non-existent. It was non-existent before John Bates got hurt, if you ask me, but it even became more invisible once he did get injured. And so he fills so many roles for this team. He wears so many hats, and that spilled over into a Ben Sinnott conversation. And he said, we view Ben Sinnott as more of a off-the-ball tight end, but we feel like he can do inline stuff if need be. So he said it's good that Ben is going to get this full week of work because John has not practiced this week so that he can be more comfortable, more acclimated to some of the things they're going to ask him to do. Because if you watch the game, he was only in the game for 4 snaps. And in those 4 snaps, he wasn't asked to do any inline blocking. He was in the backfield on some H-back type stuff. So this game is going to be a little bit different for him. They're going to ask him to do some of the inline duties that John Bates would normally handle. And so we're going to see the growth and maturation of Ben Simmons. Maybe he'll even catch a pass or two. Who knows? Right? That's not normally what John Bates does. So I don't know if that's what Ben Simmons is going to get. But he will be a guy that is going to have an expanded role, we assume, this week with John Bates being absent. And remember, if Marcus Mariota goes in this game, the one and only touchdown catch of Ben Simmons' career came from one Marcus Mariota. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying. He talked about Noah Brown, Dick Cliff, and he said that Noah Brown is a guy that is such a huge part of their offense. Obviously, he's had some injury concerns throughout his career. They are well aware of that, but they want him healthy. He changes the game for them, they feel like. And so, yes, he talked about a contingency plan, but they didn't really get into specifics of that. They just want him to get healthy and get back out on the field. But they like what they have in the receiver group. I'll believe it when I see it. But we should have enough talent to get us through. I said of all the guys that are injured, Noah Brown is the one that least concerns me because I feel like we got other guys that can step up. We need to see it, obviously, but I do believe guys are in that room that are capable of picking up the slack there. Terry being double teamed, he talked about Terry being double teamed. And he said that Terry, is still getting a ton of the attention. And it's not shocking to him because this is who we are offensively. When Terry's successful, the team is successful. Teams know that and they try to take him away. But in saying that, other guys got to step up, make plays, and that will in turn take some of the pressure off of Terry. Teams will then have to focus their attention elsewhere, and that will give Terry more opportunities to be a difference maker. I still don't buy all of this Terry getting double teamed, this, that, and the third nonsense. Are teams shading over the top of Terry not to let him get vertical? Yes. But there are a lot of other ways you can get Terry involved. They need to do that. I feel like they're not doing enough to get Terry involved in the offense, to get him going early, which one of the questions kind of suggested they do that. Cliff has to do a better job of doing that, and I think he will. I think we'll see this offense pick up this week. Hopefully Jaden's out there, but if he's not, Marcus can fully carry that mantle and get this offense going and get them on track. And let's score some points. We haven't looked like ourselves yet, right? And my mantra this year is if you are who you say you are, prove it. We think we're this dynamic, explosive offense, yet we haven't shown it in the first 2 weeks of the season. Here's an opportunity against a Raiders team that's not mincemeat on defense, but we can score the football. If you are who you say you are, then prove it. That's how I feel this week. And Terry's a part of that. So I'm putting the onus on Cliff to get Terry more involved. You go to JWJ, Joe Whitt Jr.'s press conference, and I talked about him being chesty and testy today. He was a little ornery, right? He started off his press conference talking about the Giants game, the Packers game, because remember, we didn't hear from them last week. The Giants game, the Packers game, and then this upcoming week versus the Raiders and the challenges that they pose. He talked about the Giants game, said, hey, we played well. We were dominant up front. He gave a lot of love to Javon Kinlaw. Talked about the defensive line and the secondary stepping up last week against the Giants, or week 1 against the Giants. He then talked about Green Bay's game and how he thought the front played well, but that the eye discipline of the secondary wasn't what it needed to be. And really the secondary and the linebackers, because we had a lot of guys out in the flats, things of that nature, wide ass open as well. So he thought the eye discipline was not what it was supposed to be. It was not up to the standard, and they struggled in that regard. He talked about the tight end getting loose and all of those things. And then he talked about the Raiders, and he talked about Brock Bowers and how impressive he's been throughout his career. And he followed him since he was a freshman at Georgia, and he knows the threat that he poses. He said, hell, we're going to even treat him like a receiver. He's that good. I would like to see them do that and put a corner on him, but they're not going to do that, right? He talked about Geno Smith being a veteran and a guy that has been around the block, seen a lot of things. Talked about their offensive line, said that they're playing well. I disagree with that, but Colton Miller is really good, and he did give Colton Miller some love at left tackle. He's really good in the pass protection game, right? He talked about Genty and talked about how good of a back he is, and he is a really good back. I just don't think the Raiders have fed him enough. Maybe this is the week Pete Carroll, and I've said this already, I think Pete Carroll's going to go to the chipster and be like, hey, you got to run it more, bro. You got to run the football more, because they didn't run it enough against the Chargers. I think he was actually having success. Now, they couldn't run it in week 1 against New England. I think we can do what New England did to them. The Chargers really didn't stop him from running the ball. The Raiders really stopped themselves from running the football, so he talked about that. Then he talked about the significance of losing Dietrich Wise. He's like, Dietrich was one of those guys first to the building, studied extremely hard, set a great example for the rest of the team. Was a guy that was stout at the point of attack, played square, was physical in the run game, but also could collapse the pocket. He will be missed. But he said other guys are going to get an opportunity. I did not love the name that he said, but he was supposed to say that name. He said guys like John Baptiste, and others are going to get opportunities to step up. And he said that we will see more of Jacob Martin, which does not warm my heart, although I think Jacob Martin has been playing extremely well. I like my Jacob Martin playing 20 to 27, maybe 30 snaps at max. That means his number is going to be elevated. Maybe it means an elevation in production like it did for Dante Fowler Jr. But again, there's a reason that he was playing that role. You want to keep him there. And I did not love what he said about Preston Smith. Speaking of which, let's go to that. it was almost like he was dismissing Preston Smith. Like, and again, he doesn't know Preston Smith. He just knows he's a veteran. But he said that Jason Simmons, who is Joe Whitt Jr.'s right-hand man, had experience with him in Green Bay. He's a veteran. He said he'll, get on the field when he gets up to speed. I don't know what that means. I still anticipate at least 10 snaps for Preston Smith this week. He's practicing. I expect him to be out there. It wouldn't shock me after what he just said. It wouldn't shock me if he was inactive on Sunday. Like, he's got to get into playing shape and all this shit. And I was like, wasn't expecting you to tell me that Preston Smith is a non-factor right now, which is essentially what he said. But he could still be active. He could still play on Sunday because the only way to get into game shape is to actually get in the game and play, right? I just don't think he's going to play a ton of snaps, but I did not want Javonte Jean-Baptiste starting. That's what we're going to get this week and maybe even next week until Preston Smith. I firmly believe, and I could be wrong about this, I could be way off base here, and that Javonte Jean-Baptiste is going to be the starter moving forward, no matter what happens with Preston Smith. In my mind, I've told myself to make me feel better about all of this, that Preston Smith is going to be the starter eventually and sooner rather than later. And I'm hoping by next week, he's got his legs under him. They like what they saw in this game, and so he can start next game. But we'll see, right? Hopefully, Javonte Jean-Baptiste just plays better, and then I don't have to worry about him being out there because I didn't love what I saw from him against Green Bay. He talked about man coverage. We know that was a big topic of discussion last week after all of the open receivers against Green Bay, the motions that really seemed to give us a ton of problems. He talked about all of that stuff. He's like, we have ways to combat that. That's not an issue. He said the pure man-to-man coverage down the field, we didn't have any issues with that. Like he said, the one on the sideline with Marshawn, that was the push-off. The officials need to call that, but it is what it is. They didn't call it. You got to continue to play. He said, we can't give up the big plays, but all in all, he said the eye, discipline was our biggest issue. The man-to-man coverage is fine. The motions and all the stuff that they were doing, we have ways to combat that, and we have to be better in communication with that. So that's all I needed to hear with that. He talked about Frankie Louvu. He actually laughed during this. He said, I talked to Frankie today, actually, because Frankie Louvu's kind of been MIA for a lot of you. I think Frankie's been, trying to adjust to everything that's going on. But he said that he told Frankie, look, bro, you had an all-pro year last year. Teams are treating you like a big now. You're no longer getting the running back to block you like you were last year. Now they're assigning an offensive lineman to you. You're going to have to beat these offensive linemen. They're treating you like you're a defensive end. And so he's going to have to adjust. I think it's a little bit more than that. And Joe Whitt did go into a little bit more specific, saying, I've got to put him in some different situations, which I think that is the case. I think they have to put him in more advantageous situations to be successful. And if they do that, you're going to see Frankie be unleashed once again. But I think there's still this filling out process of getting everything the way you want. And this is, again, I feel like one of those byproducts of not putting your guys out there in the preseason to really get looks. And this is what happens. It takes you a little while to figure everything out. But I think we're going to start to see the real Frankie Louvu, screw loose oos, show up and show out. He talked about communications and checks. Those are so important. He said we were fine with the communication and the checks during the Green Bay game. Like, we didn't have any issues with that. We had issues with eye discipline, being where we were supposed to be, eyes being where we were supposed to be, keying the right stuff, and then doing what we were supposed to do. He said it didn't matter if it was you, me, or somebody else running that seam up running that tight end seam. We'd have been wide open because we didn't have proper eye discipline. We have to be better. We will be better. We've repped it all week long because we know it's a copycat league. Teams are going to copy what they just saw. So the Raiders are going to try to send guys in motion and see if they can't catch us napping there. They're going to send that same tight end seam play up the middle of the football field. Why? Because it worked last week, and it worked to a lesser degree with the Giants the week before. So they're going to try it too with Brock Bowers. And if we're not ready, it'll turn into a big play for them as well. That's why they repped it a ton this week. Hopefully it does not present a problem for the team this week. He talked about the 10-day layoff and the benefit versus the negatives of that. And he said, when you win, it's great, right? I talked about this already. I think everyone has the same mentality when it comes to the 10-day. This is why I stress we got to win this game. The next 10 days are going to be miserable if we don't, especially the weekend going into the next week's game. it sucks, right? Thursday sucks if you lose. Friday sucks even more because you had a chance to sleep and wake up and it's not a dream. You lost. Saturday sucks. Sunday, you get to watch games. You're distracted, but it still sucks. Monday, you realize you're starting over again, but it still sucks because you're still talking about Thursday's loss. Tuesday, you're getting closer to starting over, but you're still not starting over yet. You're still talking about a game that happened over 5 days ago, and it sucks. Then you get to Wednesday, and you finally get to turn the page and talk about a different game that's coming up. And so he was like, it sucks when you lose. Period. End of discussion. You're chomping at the bit to get back out there. While it gives you a chance to assess the things you did well, the things you didn't do well, really harp on those things, get them corrected, gives you more time to focus on all of those things. It also gives you time to dwell on a loss, which you can't do. You can't allow one loss to beat you twice. So you want to move on. And he said, that's why it feels good to finally get back on the practice field, put some of those things that I've been looking at to action on the field, move on to a new opponent, and get that taste out of your mouth. The only way you get the taste out of your mouth is by going out and playing a new game. That's going to happen on Sunday. And I think I know they're looking for a much, much different result. And then he talked about the Brock Bowers dilemma, which there is a real Brock Bowers dilemma for this team. He basically said Brock Bowers can line up anywhere. And because of that, you have to be really disciplined as to how you call things out, where you line up, what kind of personnel you put on the field, because they can go 12 personnel and he's lined up in line as a traditional Y. They could go that same 12 personnel and he's split out wide as a receiver, right? And so all of a sudden, you have all these different challenges. You really don't want a linebacker on him if he's split out wide, if he's in tight. But you got nickel personnel on the field. Now you're at a disadvantage there. So he's a tough guy to cover, and we're going to have to be very mindful of where he is at all times. And we're going to have the right personnel to adjust to where he is on the field. So he presents a ton of problems for us, knowing our issues with the tight end. Hopefully it doesn't turn into a much bigger issue than it was on Thursday night against Tucker Kraft. So Joe Whitt Jr.'s presser was fun today. He was ornery. He was testy. I think he is a microcosm of what this team's mentality is going to be. They're going to be pissed off, looking to take it out on somebody. And I think the Raiders are in the wrong place at the wrong time. So before we move on to Behind Enemy Lines, let's get a word from our sponsor of this show, Sleeper. Sleeper is the best way to experience and connect over sports together. It's a one-stop shop for all of your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat in the games in real time with other users, get the fastest scores, blazing fast news and alerts right at your fingertips. Play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. So enjoy sports the way they were meant to, together. Download the #1 sports app today. Predict the hottest football stats like passing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and much more to cash in on your daily fantasy football skills. Use promo code LTN and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Sleeper. So now we go behind enemy lines, and we really got to talk about this Raiders team and what they bring to the table. They pose a number of different threats, but I feel like this is a team we match up with very well. Outside of Brock Bowers, there's nothing that they have that scares me, right? Genty is a difference-making back, I truly believe, but their offensive line isn't a difference-making offensive line, I believe. So I don't think you can maximize him. And Chip Kelly doesn't make the back the focal point. I think you could really take an offense and build it around Genty's skill set and what Brock Bowers does and really turn that into a dynamic offense. But Chip Kelly's focus isn't on the run game. So let's talk about these two teams. And in order to get a real sense of what the Raiders bring to the table, we first have to take a look at the good guys. So let's talk about these two teams and what they bring to the table. We start with Washington. You look at our offensive and you look at our leaders in statistical categories. Jayden Daniels, obviously passing yards, 433, two touchdowns passing for Jayden Daniels. Our leader in the clubhouse in rush yards is Bill, who barely played in week 2 at 99 yards. So we don't even have 100 yards rushing by a running back this season after 2 weeks, which is despicable. Rushing touchdowns, you have one each for Bill and Debo. Receiving yards, just a shade over 100 and 121. So again, you can see this offense is not humming at the level that we expected it to be after 2 weeks. You don't have a ton of receiving yards for your receiving leader. You don't have a ton. Debo had 70 yards, 77 yards receiving in week 1. So again, that tells you that there wasn't a lot of production in week 2. Zach Ertz leads the team in receiving touchdowns. What's new with 2? Bobby Wagner leads the team in tackles with 21. What's new? Dorrance Armstrong, I've said this. Rio, others have said it. We think Dorrance Armstrong is primed for a big year. I think he could easily have, double-digit sacks for the first time in his career. He's off to a fast start with 2 sacks through the first 2 games. And then we don't have any interceptions because we haven't forced a single turnover this season. This is the game. If there was ever one to get on the board from a forcing turnover perspective, this is the game. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Vegas, Geno Smith, 542 passing yards through the first 2 weeks. He has 1 passing touchdown on the season. Genty has 81 rush yards. So again, they're kind of in the same boat as us. I told you, they don't focus on the run game the way that they should. So I think we can shut down Ashton Genty in this game. He has 1 touchdown rushing that came in week 1. Receiving yards, Jacoby Myers, 165. He is a problem, and we need to make sure we keep tabs on him. Receiving touchdowns, Trey Tucker has speed to burn. So does another Raider receiver, a rookie, in Dante Thornton Jr. Got to keep track on both of those guys. You're looking for big plays. Those are the 2 guys that are going to produce them over the top. Devin White has had a resurgence in Vegas. 19 tackles, leads their team. 3 sacks by Jonah Lualu. He's been playing really well. He's a guy, you don't focus on him. You're so worried about Max Crosby, and then you look up and this guy's getting to the quarterback. So we got to keep an eye on him. Interceptions, Isaiah Polamalu. He is dangerous. This guy is always around the ball. I saw him in the preseason make a pick. He had a pick in week 1 versus Drake May and the Patriots. This guy is constantly around the football. You have to keep tabs on where he is at all times. He can be a problem if you do not account for him. Now you look at Washington's offense. Total offense, we're 14th in the NFL right now at 331 yards. This is not where we're supposed to be. This is not who we are. This is not what we're about. We're one of those offenses that's supposed to be trending towards 400 yards of total offense per game. We need to be moving in that direction. This is not indicative of who we felt like we were. And this is, again, one of those weeks where if you are who you say you are, prove it. This is one of those games. Need that offensive total to go up from a yardage standpoint, because if we have more yards in the game, which means we're converting more third downs, fourth downs if need be, we're possessing the football longer, and now you're seeing guys touch the ball. It's also going to lead to more points for this offense. Scoring offense, speaking of which, 19 and a half. Again, we were damn near hovering around 30 all year last year, including after the first 4 weeks, I think, or so. We were number 1 going into that Ravens game. We were the number 1 offense in football, right? We're 23rd, and we're not even averaging 20 points a game. Granted, Green Bay game wasn't great. The week 1 game against the Giants wasn't great, 21 points. This is not who we are. We gotta start scoring the football. Passing offense, 23rd in the league. Again, we're averaging just a shade under 200 yards a game. That's not us. We were always up in that 215 to 220, 225 range last year. We got to get our shit together, right? Sacks allowed. We've allowed, 7 sacks this season. Almost at the bottom of the league. Too many sacks. Some of those are on Jaden. Some of that is on the pass protection. It speaks to, though, that the pass protection has not been good enough. Jaden, some of these sacks are on him. Can't put this all on the offensive line, but Jaden also has to be better. But the offensive line is the story here. They have to be better up front, especially that right side of the offensive line. Rush offense, we're 8th. A lot of that is off the strength of Jaden's legs. As you can see, we don't have a 100-yard rushing running back right now. We ran for 220 yards versus the Giants. That's why we're 8th right now. We did not have a ton of success running the football against the Packers. So that almost feels like fool's gold. But if you go out and you blaze the Raiders for 212 yards, this will feel real to me, right? Third down offense. This is abysmal. That's not us. That's not us. That's not a good representation of who we want to be. Last year, we were hovering around 50%. We were top 10 in the league basically the entire year on third downs. Offensively, we're down near the bottom at 27th in the league. The league average is right around 40. We're at 33.33%. That is nauseating, is what it is. You're not going to win a lot of games doing that on third downs. We haven't been good the first 2 weeks of the season. This is indicative of that. We weren't good against the Giants on third downs. We were 4 of 11 in that game. We weren't good against the Packers. We were 4 of 15, if I'm not mistaken, in that game. You have to be better on third downs. Point blank, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Total defense, 16th in the league, right around where I said I would be happy if we finish anywhere from 16th to 10th in the league in defense. Anywhere in that neighborhood is an improvement from last year's defense. Scoring defense, top 5. That's based off of the Giants' result. They only scored 6 points. So we're going to really get a sense of where we are. If we hold the Raiders to, 10 points in this game, it'll feel real defensively from a scoring defense standpoint. Passing defense, giving up 213 yards a game. That got inflated with Jordan Love's success on Thursday night. We'll see what it kind of feels like after Geno Smith in the Raiders game. Sacks, tied for 16th, right in the middle of the league with 4. We can be better in that department, but we don't have a guy. So it's going to be a collective effort. Rush defense, 14th in the league. And honestly, I think Russ had like 48 yards rushing. That's what really did it. Jordan Love ran a little bit. The Packers had Savion Williams with 2 really good runs last week. Like this rush defense isn't indicative of how good the run defense has been. It's really been the others that have run against us. It hasn't been the running backs. We held Josh Jacobs to less than 4 yards a carry, and we held the Giants running backs to less than 2 yards a carry. So the run defense has been just fine. Third down defense, 5th in the league. We're actually getting off the field. We got off the field against Green Bay on third downs for the most part. We got off the field against the Giants in the first game. They were 4 of 15, if I'm not mistaken, on third downs. We've been really good third down defense-wise. Want to see that continue moving forward. Time of possession, we're 20th in the league. We can be so much better there, but that comes with extending drives, converting on third downs, etc., which we haven't done the first 2 weeks of the season. And then turnover differential, it's right where we should be, middle of the pack, because we haven't forced any turnovers. We also haven't turned it over. So we're at 0. I want that number to change, and I want a plus to be next to it when we do start to post some numbers. I think this is a week to get that done. Speaking of which, let's go to the ops and the Raiders. They're 22nd in total offense right now, just a shade over 300 yards. They stunk it up on Monday night. That brought their number down significantly. Scoring offense, they're second to last in the NFL right now at 14.5 points. Again, they didn't score a bunch in week 1 in their win over New England, and they only scored 9 points last week against the Chargers. So, again, that's why the number is so low for them. Passing offense, they're 11th in the NFL right now. Like, so many people, call Geno Smith trash and this, that, and a third, and I just don't buy it. Like, Geno Smith has his struggles at times. We saw it last week, but Geno Smith can also go out and throw for over 70% completion percentage and light you up for 370 yards and 2 scores and no interceptions. That can't be this week, though. That can't be this week. But sacks allowed, 27th in the league. I think you can get to Geno Smith. Like, Geno is mobile, but he's not he's like Russell Wilson to me, a less mobile version of Russell Wilson. Like, Russell take off on you and run. Geno has to have clear real estate to take off and run. Geno's going to run around like a chicken, but he's going to take sacks too. Like, if you get to him and there's nowhere for him to escape, he's just going to take a sack. He's been sacked 7 times in the first 2 weeks, and these are legitimate sacks. I think we can get to him. I think their offensive line is one that you can confuse with twists and stunts and games and get guys free. And once you get a guy free to Geno's not elusive enough to make you miss. You can get him on the ground. So Geno's also one of those guys, the pocket starts to collapse and he'll start looking for an out. And if there's no exit, he'll just fall down on the ground. Like, I feel like we can sack Geno 3 or 4 times in this game. I really, truly do. Rush offense, they're 31st in the league. I told you, they shouldn't be able to run the ball on us. If they run the ball with Genty, and I know we're going to see Trey Tucker on a jet sweep, Trey Tucker on a reverse. They're going to try some creative and tricky things because Green Bay did it with Savion Williams, and they feel like they have guys that can do that. They're going to try that against us, right? Trey Tucker had 2 carries against the Chargers on Monday night. So they're going to try that against us. We can't allow them to run the football, though, because they're not good at it, as this bears that out. They're not good at it, and we're good at stopping it. So let's do what everybody else has done against the Raiders and shut down their run game. Third down offense, they're 10th. So they were awful on third downs against the Chargers. They were really good against the Patriots in week 1. So they're 10th right now at 45%. We got to get off the field. So their strength right now is third down offense. Our strength right now is third down defense. Who's going to win? We're 5th in the league in third down defense. They're 10th in third down offense. Somebody's going to see that number change drastically. Hopefully it's their number going up, our number either staying the same at 5th or going even lower to the top 3 of the NFL. Total defense, they're 19th in the league. So they're not that far away from where we are from a total yards perspective. Their defense isn't terrible, right? Their defense hasn't been a big issue. They only gave up 20 points to the Chargers on Monday night. Like, it's not like that game felt like a blowout, a lot like our week 1 game against the Giants, but their defense wasn't the issue, right? Scoring defense, 5th. They gave up 20, as I said, to the Chargers, and they gave up, it wasn't a lot to the Patriots. It wasn't a lot. So whatever that number was, it had to be less than 20. If the number is 16, that's 32. That means they probably gave up like 13 to the Patriots or something like that, for a grand total of 33 points in 2 weeks. That'll get you 16 and a half. So they're not giving up a bunch of points is what I'm trying to convey to you. I think that score was 20 to 13, 20, 1 to 13, something like that. Passing defense, that's where I think they can be, taken advantage of. I think you can throw the football against them. I think you can run the ball against them a little bit, but I actually have been impressed with their run defense. But that doesn't mean you don't try and run the ball. But I think this is where you can have success, is throwing the football against them. 27th in the league right now. Sacks, they're tied for 8th with 6 sacks on the season. So they're getting to the opposition's quarterback. But again, if you neutralize Max Crosby, it's going to give you a chance to get the ball out, do what you need to do. But other guys feed off of Max Crosby's energy. So you're so preoccupied with not letting Max Crosby get you. And all of a sudden, like I told you, the Louie guy is all of a sudden in your face getting a sack on the quarterback. He's got 3 of them already this season. Rush defense, 4th in the league right now at 70 yards a game. It looks great, right? It looks great. New England didn't have a ton of success on the ground. They actually tried. The Chargers really didn't try to run the football. And that's how they were able to get this number. The Chargers attacked them through the air with Justin Herbert, and that was successful. So I think this rush defense is a bit of fool's gold, but I don't think they're garbage at stopping the run. So I think we can run the ball against them. I don't know if it's going to be super effective, but it should be effective enough to open up the pass game, which I do think they're susceptible at giving up yards through the air. Third down defense, we were 5th. They're 4th on third downs. They do a really good job of getting you in these long down and distances. Max Crosby blows up first down run. It's a 2-yard loss. Now you're in 2nd and 12. You throw a pass, it's incomplete. Now it's 3rd and 12. And they do a really good job of rallying and tackling on third down to get you off the field in 3rd and long situations. So we are 5th in the league. They're 4th. So again, we're not good on third downs right now as an offense. They're really good on third downs as a defense. We need to get our shit together. This might not be the week, but this needs to be the week. Whether they're good at it or not, this needs to be the week where we tighten up and get our shit together on third downs. Time of possession, they're 13th in the league at 30 minutes and 49 seconds. Again, we need to be better in the time of possession game. And turnover differential, they're 25th, tied for 25th at -2. And that's largely in part because of Geno Smith, who leads the NFL in interceptions thrown to this point with 4. He's thrown at least one in each of the first 2 weeks. He threw 1 against the Patriots and 3 last week against the Chargers on Monday Night Football. So now he leads the NFL in interceptions. I don't want to break the trend, right? If Geno's being in this generous giving mood, every week he's sharing, where's ours, right? Don't stop now. Where's ours? So that's where the Raiders are in their turnover differential. They're -2. Can we get some, please? We're starving over here, man. Ball is life. We're starving for a little bit of life, man. There's more to life than just taking care of the ball and not forcing turnovers. There's got to be more to life. Here's an opportunity with a team that doesn't mind sharing. Let us get our hands on something this week against the Raiders and Geno Smith. So that is our look at the Raiders going behind enemy lines. We will go in depth with what it will take to win the game, keys to victory tomorrow versus this Raiders football team on the Friday edition of Commanders Nightly News. Looking forward to chopping it up with you there. Also looking forward to chopping it up with you tonight. Special Commanders Kings Thursday night edition. Normally we steer clear of Thursday night football. I'm not too concerned with Bills and Dolphins. That's a game that I'll be watching out of my peripheral, but let's talk about the Commanders, right? Let's get that done. So we're going to do that tonight. Hopefully you'll be able to join us for that live stream tonight. But in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys next time. Until then, I'm your man Louie T. Peace.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone.